We've gone from full cultivation system, which was mainstream practice 25, 30 years ago, to what we deem in Australia to be no-till, which was knife point press wheel, which still has a single cultivation pass but very low disturbance. And then the next step from there is seeding with a zero-till implement like a single disc seeder, where we really try and reduce our disturbance of our soil and improve our soil structure. There is a great amount of interest in what's going on underneath our feet in our soils, and a lot of interest in actually improving practices to improve our soils.
When we measure the area that we're farming, we always talk about it two-dimensionally, which is measured length by width, so how many acres we're farming. But when we start thinking about it, the three-dimension, adding that depth in, we can all of a sudden double the size of the farm or the soil that we're farming without having to buy any more land.
One of our biggest challenges in the West Wimmera is waterlogging. Changing our practices, we're helping to increasing the infiltration of the water, just trying to be kinder to the soils and help improve the soil fertility, improve the structure, the life of the soils, bring back the biology.
This morning we went and gathered some samples from the roadside just out the front here. We've got a sample here from Grant's cover crop straight over the road, and Grant's zero-till wheat crop, which is 2 or 3 paddocks that way, and straight over the road from it was a knife point wheat crop. So there are our 4 samples for today.
The more you try and wreck a soil, the less it gives you to work with. You want water to go in, not off.
What we've just witnessed, it's called a rainfall simulator, is to look at the impact of rain and the impact of that rain on the soil, and to contrast management approaches in terms of how bad that impact is. So in this instance, we had a series of tests where we looked at full tillage, we looked at zero-till, and we looked at the impact of cover crops. The thing to understand here when we talk about this concept of infiltration is a recognition that it's probably the single most important word in the brave new world of climate change farming. So we're talking about when we do get rain, how much of that we can grab hold of and hold on to.
When we've done these tests in, say, February, March, coming out of a dry summer, generally these things you'll see basically zero runoff, and it all just goes straight in, and it'll take quite a bit. Sometimes that inch won't even run through, and we have to put another inch in, and then because that water will hold that, we're creating that bigger sponge effectively. And what I've seen in the past where we've had cultivation and breaking up that fine structure, we'll run it with a lot of runoff, very little infiltration. When we when we run this, and whether we do it today as well, we'd flick these pans over, and quite often, even though it's had an inch of water on it, it's dry because it's just running off and not going in, whereas the zero tillage soils generally, you got all moisture on the bottom. The cultivated soils would be dry and clumps where water's just found little cracks to go through. So really good tool to demonstrating those effects of that. It's a bit trickier now when everything's fairly wet. But the other thing on the carbon thing that Ayresy was, so there's there's basically no water come through there. And the other thing you want to see is like the clear, when you've got that dirty stuff coming off, that's your soil, that fine topsoil coming off. And if it does infiltrate, you'll see a lot going through. But we ran this in Tasmania up on the Table Cape a few years ago, and they had full cultivation up there growing carrots and all kinds of stuff. We ran this rainfall simulator on the full cultivation, and it actually behaved quite well. But the organic carbon of that soil was 14%. It was massively high because it was old rainforest. So what it sort of also told me is the more carbon that we can get in their soil, the more forgiving they are to us, and the more robust that, like the poorer soils, if we cultivate them and do things to them, you know, can be very detrimental. So the more we've got to look after them. So, but essentially, you know, that test that year we did, it was unbelievable. Even the guys, so the guys that come out from America, they've travelled the world doing this, and they said they'd never seen that happen.
We've gone from 5% globally organic matter down to 1.5% organic matter. We've lost the glue that holds together the stuff that produces our food. That's the importance of it, and that's what we're measuring. When we see the dirty water, the rivers running brown, the dust storms, that's a loss of the glue that holds those soils together. And there we can see in the cultivated soils, substantially 2 or 3 times more of that silt, of that precious topsoil lost during a rainstorm, and 50% more lost compared to either a zero-till where there's minimum disturbance. The concept of disturbing of zero-till, part of that story comes down to creatures called fungi, beneficial fungi in the soil, who hate the intrusion of cold steel. It chops and slices and dices these organisms who are responsible for creating the stable humus that will last up to 35 years, holding that soil together. So in a zero-till soil where we're not disturbing those very important creatures, we can see the outcome with this relatively clear water and half as much compared to a cultivated soil where we've turned the water brown, we've lost that, the rivers turn brown as a result of that, we've lost that precious topsoil. 7 to 12 tonnes per hectare per year of topsoil. We'll lose 60 years, nothing, and we're done and dusted way before then. So that's the importance of a simple little trial like this.
After seeing the rainfall stimulator, it gave me confidence that the management practices that we're beginning to undertake are putting us on the right track.
We've seen on our own farm that subsoil change from implementing zero tillage to get that nice crumbly structure.
I think it's a really good thing to get people out in the paddock and actually witness these things. You can listen to scientists all you want, but it's completely different when you're actually standing out in the paddock. You witness the soil that has actually been collected from right there, and you see that run in the rainfall simulator, and it gives you a real life, real world perspective of how soils can behave, and the one that you're immediately seeing. And I think it's a really important thing for farming and agriculture in general. It's a great way to get information across to people, and there's no better way to go out and stand in a paddock and ask a farmer what he does.